Dear students, thank you for coming back. Today I am here with the explanation of the poem on killing a tree. And this poem has been written by Gieve Patel. Gieve Patel presents the sturdiness of a fully grown tree strengthened by nourishment from the earth, the sun and the air. The poem also depicts the survival instinct of a strong tree which refuses to die even when its trunk and branches have been chopped off. The real strength and vitality of a tree lie in its deep roots. It's only when these roots wither that the tree loses its life. So the first stanza of the poem goes like this. It takes much time to kill a tree. Not a simple jab of the knife will do it. It has grown slowly, consuming the earth, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust, absorbing years of sunlight, air, water, and out of its leprous hide, sprouting leaves. In this stanza, the poet remarks that the process of the full growth of a tree is slow and steady. It consumes the nutrients from the earth, the sunlight, the air, and the water, and grows so strong that it cannot be killed easily. The stanza opens with the poet's statement that killing a tree is a long process which consumes a lot of time. The wounds inflicted on it with a knife or an axe cannot cause its death. The tree draws its nourishment from nature, which makes it so strong that it develops amazing self-healing powers. The bark of its trunk is discolored like the skin of a person suffering from leprosy. Still, new leaves and branches sprout from them. The second stanza says, so hack and chop, but this alone won't do it. Not so much pain will do it. The bleeding bark will heal, and from close to the ground will rise curled green twigs. Miniature boughs, which if unchecked, will expand again to former size. In these lines, the poet addresses a person who is trying to kill a tree. The poet empathetically states that attacking a tree and cutting off its trunk or branches cannot cause its death. The powerful blows of the axe can only give pain and scars to the tree, but not put an end to its life. The injured trunk, with the sap oozing from its wounded bark, will certainly heal with time. Even if the whole of the trunk is hacked, the stump close to the ground will sprout again, and small green curled branches will appear. These branches, if not hacked again, will grow till they attain the original size of the tree. Therefore, hacking may harm a tree for some time, but the tree has the potential to heal itself and regenerate into its former size. Now let's move on to stanza 3, which says, no, the root is to be pulled out of the anchoring earth. It is to be roped, tied and pulled out, snapped out or pulled out entirely, out from the earth cave, and the strength of the tree exposed, the source white and wet, the most sensitive hidden for years inside the earth. Here the poet describes the actual process that can kill a tree. As axing and chopping cannot end the life of a tree, it is the root, deep under the surface of the earth, that needs to be attacked. The root is held tightly and supported by the nourishing earth, and it is not easy to destroy it. It has to be either pulled out with great force or to be cut into pieces and then taken out of the depth of the earth. For pulling it out, people have to tie it firmly with ropes and then apply great force to completely uproot it. In fact, the real strength of a tree lies in its roots, which remains wet and white deep under the earth. However, it cannot tolerate exposure to the sunlight or heat. The fourth stanza says, then the matter of scorching and choking in sun and air, browning, hardening, twisting, withering, and then it's done. The poet in this stanza describes how an uprooted tree ultimately dies. The scorching heat of the sun and exposure to the air smother the root of the tree. However, it does not die at once. It grows brown. its soft white wood hardens, the hardened root gets twisted, and eventually it withers away absolutely, completing the process of tree's death. Let me now throw light on the literary devices used by the poet. Beginning with the rhyme scheme, the poem has been written in free verse. There is no rhyme scheme and the length of the lines varies. At the same time, you'll see that the stanzas are also of unequal length. The second literary device that the poet has used is alliteration. Alliteration, as you know, it's the repetition of the sounds at close intervals. It's used to land a lyrical or musical element to the poem. So the first example is the bleeding bark will heal. So here the sound of B and L is being repeated. At the same time, the second example that says the source white and wet. So the sound of W is repeated here. Let me now move on to the third literary devices, that is metaphor. And you know, metaphor is the comparison between two unlike things without the use of word like and as. So the first example is the bleeding bark. Here the word bleeding is a metaphor. The poet compares the sap oozing out of the bark of a hacked tree trunk to the blood of a human being or a living creature, but does not use the word of comparison. Then we see the second example, that is leprous hide. Here the uneven discolored bark of a tree is compared to the discolored and gnarled skin of a person suffering from leprosy. But the poet again does not use the word like or as here. So it is a metaphor. Next literary device is repetition. Repetition, as you know, is using a word, phrase or clause a number of times with the purpose of laying emphasis or to provide unity to the poem. So here is the example where we can see repetition. The root is to be pulled out of the anchoring earth. It's to be roped, tied and pulled out, snapped out or pulled out entirely out from the earth cave. So here we see the word out and the phrase pulled out is used again and again to emphasize the effort involved in uprooting a tree and exposing its root. It shows that the root of the tree is deeply fixed into the earth. Next literary device that the poet has used is enjambment. Enjambment, as you know, when one line of the poetry rolls on to the next line without any pause marked by a comma or a full stop. So in this poem, there is enjambment in almost every stanza. So here is the first example. Here there is no punctuation mark at the end of the first and the second line. The first line rolls on to the second line and the second line is carried on to the third line. Here again, in this pair of line, again you'll see that the first line moves on to the second line without any comma or full stop at its end. Then we have the third example where miniature bows, which if unchecked will expand again to form a size. In these lines, full stop comes at the end of the third line. The first line rolls into the second and the second rolls into the third line. Now let me talk about the title of the poem. The title of the poem is simple and appropriate as it contains the major concern of the poet, merciless and callous felling of trees. It indicates appropriately that the poem is about the process of killing of tree. The entire poem explains the view that killing a tree is not a simple, short or easy process. Trees have tremendous strength and great instinct for survival. Talking about the message that we get from the poem conveys the message that trees are living beings just like any other form of life. They have strong survival instinct and can withstand any type of assault, trauma or crisis. It's not easy to kill them, for they have a never say die attitude to life. Every time they are attacked, injured or scraped, they heal themselves and regain their glory. However, if they are uprooted and left in the air and the sun, they die. We human beings must live just as trees do. That's all for today. In case of any doubts and queries, you can drop them in the comment section below. You can also follow us on the Instagram handle that's mentioned in the description below. See you in the next video. Till then, bye-bye.